It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
Are you still a TV guy or no?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I definitely like seek a lot of inspiration from documentaries and docuseries, and so I still watch a lot. I super into like alpinist type mountaineering stuff, because that stuff like makes me sweaty, and I'm like, holy
like
shit.
Climbing Everest,
Yeah,
like that type of stuff?
Yeah, like free soloing. Yeah, like quite literally insane stuff.
All good there, Jay? Did you ever see the graphic online with just like how many dead bodies that are just like up there? Bro.
I have never seen it, but
it's not safe to go get them.
No.
No.
And it's also got to just be a lot.
It's a lot, because they freeze there, and it never...
Would you ever do it? Do some big...
my wife's getting nervous because I'm really getting into these documentaries. She's like, why are you... Because anything I really start obsessing over, I start to actually get into. So I don't think I would, just because it would be irresponsible because I have kids.
Right.
But it's something that like fires me up.
You weigh the risk of shit as you get older. Like for me, it was with lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I played baseball and I get obsessed too.
Yep.
Fucking obsessed, where like it can derail me completely, where anything else in my life is just like taking a complete backseat. But yeah, I was that with baseball for my whole life. I played in college. I just played my first 2 years in college, and I just got burnt out. I was like, I don't love this anymore. Then I got obsessed with weightlifting and powerlifting. Then it's like, okay, I herniate a disc in my back, I tear my pec, and it's like, all right, it's on to the next thing. Too risky to do that now.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, you have to outweigh it. And then if you do it, you have to do it smart.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything else matters. Especially when you have kids, because then you have a lot more responsibility on your shoulder.
Yeah, or even in here, it's like I can't be hurt for a week and can't be out here coaching people. Yeah. I'm sure with you, right? Working with dogs and filming your content. It's like I have to be mentally present and physically okay.
I think about it every day. Even when I was snowboarding yesterday, I'm like, chill out. I don't need to race anybody. Like, chill.
Is it hard for you to chill out though?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I don't have an off switch ever. And that's like good and bad. It's unhealthy because I always feel like I have to do something, and I always feel like I'm behind on something, but I'd rather be that than the alternative maybe.
It's not anxiety, it's just like this pressure to go.
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like relentless in my head, just pushing to the next thing. And yeah.
Yeah, I've said on here before, I feel like sometimes, and it's not healthy, but if I'm not feeling anxious, I feel like something's wrong or something's gonna go wrong. It's just that little bit of anxiety that keeps pushing me to do more and keep things going.
Well, I think it's healthy. I think it's important to, especially if you have an outlet for it. Like I think where people get into trouble is they have the anxiety and maybe the stress of not doing enough, and they don't know where to put it.
Right.
And I think if you have somewhere to put it where you're like, I'm going to work harder, and then you have so many things to do, you can just go bang a bunch of things out. And that's the healthy part of it, And I think again, alternatively, like it's a double-edged sword. Like if you don't have that, I always say it's a blessing and a curse. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, but it's also the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah, I agree. When you first got into this, did you just think, I'm just going to work with dogs in person, I'm going to train them, I'm going to help people? Or did you have this vision of what the internet was going to be for you?
No, it was an organic grasp there. And it was timing too. Like when I first started with the dog stuff, Instagram was becoming popular.
What year are we talking?
I don't know. I knew you were going to ask this question in my head when I said that. I don't know. But right when Instagram started to become popular is where I'm like, oh, Facebook was around. And then this is prior to Facebook owning Instagram. But right when all my friends were like posting on Instagram, I was like, what is this thing? So like whenever year that was, when
probably like 2012.
I was late to the IG game
because I feel like when my senior year of college was like when it started to really start to pick up more.
Yeah,
and then probably like 3 years after that was when it went fucking wild.
Yep.
But I'm happy we didn't have that shit in high school, like Snapchat or social media.
We had MySpace, but that's it.
I never even had one.
AOL.
Top friends.
AIM.
Yeah, it wasn't because it wasn't there. Like it was either, it wasn't an option. So it just never was in my head. Like nowadays there's kids that are like, oh man, you have YouTube videos, like kids now, or even adults now, like that's the goal, is to be able to get a YouTube thing going, right? And so back in the day, it wasn't that. It was just either like when you made it, you were on TV and that was it.
Right.
Like there wasn't anything in the middle, really.
You were on like the Today Show.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, or your own show.
Yeah.
Right, on a network.
Or Home Improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Home Improvement. But yeah, so there wasn't like really a goal to do that, and even YouTube at the time was a completely different landscape. You know, it was strictly, well, I shouldn't say that, in my opinion anyway. It was like a lot of entertainment. It wasn't a lot of education.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a lot of how-tos. It wasn't a lot of that. It was instructional. It was just, you know, funny cat videos and shit. So,
Right.
So yeah, there was no like inspiration to make content for a living or make content for other people. But yeah, so when I started with dogs, it was just, I just wanted to work with dogs.
Yeah, because how I found you or knew that you were right down the road was our daughter has been fucking obsessed with this Tucker Budson dog.
Yeah.
I come in the gym, I tell this one woman, I go, our daughter, I can't get her to shut off this golden retriever video. She goes, you know that trainer from the one episode is right down the road? I go, that dude Tom? She goes, yeah, that guy Tom. I go, no shit, man.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, just the reach of the internet.
Yeah, it's wild connector, and it's always interesting to see. I always ask people, you know, like where they hear about me and like how they heard about me, because it's just, the internet's just wild. You know, even yesterday when we were skiing, we were just sitting down next to this family, and I could hear them kind of talking, and they're like, and then the dad was like, "Are you Tom Davis?" And I was like, "Yeah," and I was just like with my family, and I was like waiting for them. I'm usually like, okay, do you have a dog? You know, and I'm waiting to hear the next step, and they're like, man, we love Miss Peaches and Dave Portnoy and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. So like the demographic of some of the people that I've collabed with and worked with is, you know, everybody from Miss Peaches to Tucker is like, it's huge. And then, you know, like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds who watched, my friends' kids are the same way. They think it's so cool that I work with Tucker. And it's just like crazy how everything's kind of connected.
Yeah.
It's wild.
How'd you even get in to working with dogs? Like, yo, I'm good at this. Like, these dogs are listening to me. They're learning things. The owners are appreciative of what I'm doing.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I just always was interested in dogs. Like, I just loved just watching them, and like a lot of people who like dogs. Like, I don't think there's anything different from how I got into it. I just think the timing and the hard work that I put in really made it a career. And so I've always liked dogs. You know, we got pictures when I was like 2 or 3 running around with dogs, playing with dogs. And it's just always been a thing. And then I went to, at the time, ACC, now it's SUNY Adirondack, I think. And, you know, I went for criminal justice, and I'm looking around, and I was like 18, 19, and I was like, I don't know about this. And I was never a good student. It just wasn't, you know, like I like school for the social aspect, like most people. But I wasn't like ever really great at school.
But college, you just felt like, hey, this is something you're supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly. I was just doing what all my friends did. And, you know, I didn't have any money. My parents didn't have any money. So I was like, okay, we had to do all this college, you know, support funding. And it was so much stress on my mom and trying to get into this college. And I was like, I'm probably not going to do anything with this. So why am I doing this to myself? Why am I doing this to my... And then also, I just didn't love the idea of somebody telling me how much money I was going to make. I didn't like the idea of somebody telling me, you know, what I could and couldn't do. I always felt very creative. Even when I was young, I just liked like being creative. Like I like music, I like art, I like culture. And then I just started like stepping back. And I remember there was a conversation with my brother. I have an older brother, and we were driving, and I was just like, I don't know, this college thing's not going to work out, man. And he's like, well, what would you want to do every day? And I was 19 at the time. And I was like, I'm like really good with dogs. Like I love dogs. And he's like, all right, well, how could you make money with dogs? And then I started a dog walking company. And so how I realized that I had something different is I was doing things with dogs that people couldn't do. I would come into a house as a dog walking client, and they had an aggressive dog or a reactive dog or a fearful dog. And within minutes, they were like, holy crap. And that happened every single day, like clockwork, because my clients couldn't go to doggy daycare. They couldn't be around a bunch of people on pack walks. So it was like I was going into homes of dogs who had behavioral issues. And within minutes, or not at all, people were like taking pictures, and they like, my husband's never going to believe this, or they were just shocked. And I'm like, that's just, I don't know. It's just what I do. Right. And then it wasn't until people started telling me, like, they started asking me to train their, I'm like, I'm not a trainer. I don't do that. And they're like, yeah, but you've done better stuff with my dog than my trainer that's been training for decades.
And has this been all just you going by feel?
Yes.
Yeah.
By feel. It's like just coaching in general. It's like, it's an art. Like I always say that, like, dog training is art. It's an art form. Like, to be able to look at a dog and identify why they're doing the thing that they're doing. And then my forte is being able to then extend it to the owner to dilute.
Because it's like this two-stepper in here, right? We're trying, behavior change is a big thing. We're dealing with humans, not dogs, but get them to be consistent with exercise, maybe change dietary habits, change how their body moves so they're not in pain anymore. But like, I'm dealing with a human. I can talk to them. I can ask them how they feel.
They can tell you how they feel
They
back.
can tell you how they feel back.
Right.
It's like, with a dog, it is a lot of feel.
Yeah, that's all it was, is, just being able to look at the dog. When people brought me, there were external problems, right? So they were just symptoms. My dog's reactive, my dog's aggressive, my dog's jumping, my dog's this. And I would just be able to, within minutes, go, boop. And they were like, and I just, and like I said, like, I just did that for so long, and I didn't make any money dog walking. Like, I was always in debt. I couldn't ever pay my bills. I was working at pizza shops around town just to make ends meet. And people were trying to throw money at me to train their dogs. And I was like, fine. And
At some point, you got to accept it, right?
That was it, and it was like I said, I never my roommate at the time was a manager at Golden Corral. And so I'd go in and eat for free just because I didn't have any money. Like,
It's a little buffet action,
exactly.
right?
Back in the day. Now looking at it, now taking care of myself and really educating myself about nutrition, I was like, that was an awful idea.
Listen,
but
sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Do you remember the Ponderosa back in the day?
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my God,
yeah.
Ponderosa.
That was my spot.
Same shit.
Think about our childhood. Ponderosa, Pizza Hut.
Yep.
For
Pizza
sure.
Hut.
Those are two
Those
staples.
are the two Hudson staples, no doubt.
Yeah.
Hands down. I mean, obviously Dairy Queen for us.
We had Dairy Queen, Spring Garden Chinese food. We're all about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't know until you know. But yeah, it was. So then once people started like trying to throw money at me for dog training, I just was like, oh, I can't pay my bills, and my heat is turned off, and I'm eating peanut butter and butter sandwiches from Stewart's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I was like, all right, $20. Okay. Jumped at it, and then boom, here we are.
How long were you dog walking roughly before?
Probably 4 years.
Wow.
Just trying to make it work,
Yeah.
trying to scale it. And again, I had no intentions of making money. I just wanted to pay my bills and do what I loved, which in my opinion is success. Like if you can pay your bills, your groceries, keep the heat on, etc., and do what you love, then that's success.
Huge. But having kids does add another layer to that. Because I'm always like, okay, let's pay my bills and make sure this business can operate every month. But now I'm like, oh, I got a kid who I want to leave him with something. They may want to go to college. I got to make sure I'm saving more. I got to be able to provide for them. To me, that was like a kick for me too, to be like, okay, I not only want this thing to like get by, but like I want to profit. I want
It's
to
more
profit some
bills
money.
too.
Yeah.
Childcare, more groceries.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more bills.
And the
another
groceries only going to get more and more
Yeah.
because the child's only going to get bigger and eat more.
Especially you got boys. I got 2 boys, so
Oh yeah, you're
I'm saving now.
good luck.
Yeah, I'm like, I got a girl. My wife's like 4'11".
Yeah,
I'm maybe
you're
all
okay.
5'5". So
You're okay.
I'm gonna be okay. Better shape than you. But when you're with a dog, how much are you processing? Like, okay, some of it's reactivity or behavioral issues. This is coming from the owner and how they're handling this dog versus this may be the dog's nature or past trauma. Are you doing this intake and just being like, where am I starting right now?
Yeah, interesting enough, like I don't do any consulting with owners before they get in front of me. I have my team do that, mainly because honestly, it's just a waste of time. Like I don't need to hear anything.
Right.
First thing I ask is if the dog has a bite history, just so I know, because I don't feel like getting bit that day.
But you have this intake that your team's doing.
Yeah.
They're, okay.
Yeah, professional intake.
Yep.
And then I just show up and do my thing. But yeah, I'm assessing the situation like really quickly, and I can tell within seconds of what the body language of the dog, how they're barking, what their bark sounds like, what the owners are doing, how they're holding their leash, what the age of the owner is versus the dog. Like I know, and to your point, like yes, there's a lot that goes into all of it. Past trauma, genetics are huge. Genetics are the same thing for you guys, right? Mm-hmm. You get a Samoan that walks in here and they're like, hey, I want to get big. You're like, okay, easy.
Yeah.
Right? But
Lift some weight, eat some
Yeah,
food.
I
That's
say in
it.
here, especially we see a lot of high school athletes.
Yeah.
They all, I want to get bigger. I want to get. if you want to make a team, you got to be really fast and powerful. It's those two fitness qualities, speed and power. But sometimes a kid has a Hemi or they got a V6.
Right.
And you go, okay, I got to work with what we have.
Right.
But you have a Hemi or a V6. I can't take that V6 and exchange it for a Hemi in that body. Just not going to happen.
Same thing. Same thing. As I'm looking at that, somebody's got like a Mastiff and they're, 100 pounds soaking wet. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot more to just this, You got the wrong dog. So now you have to do triple the work because now you have to do the behavioral assessment, behavior modification. You got to do basic training, and then you got to train this handler to be really good. So yeah, I'm addressing all of that like within seconds and then putting it to work like immediately. Boom, let's go. Because I can just pick it apart. I'm sure like you see somebody, like if you watched me lift weights, you'd be like, you're doing it all wrong. And you'd be able to go doop, 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 and help me do it right.
Yeah, which is like...
Same thing.
Yeah, which just takes years of experiences. Because now it's like, oh, I see this person. You go, I've seen this before. And I've seen what works. And I've seen what doesn't work. So I think my first intervention, I'm probably going to be successful. Because we've been here before.
Yeah, and the cool thing like that drives me continually is just like the instant satisfaction of, I love dogs, right? Like I love them, and some of the dogs I work with, their life is on the line. Like if they don't get better, they're going to be put down.
Yeah, what a motivation, huh?
So for me, I'm just like, that's the cool, like it's that loop that keeps the fire going for me, that I don't burn out in, because I'm looking at a dog that really desperately needs help, and everything, all the experience is up here, and I'm like, I can help this dog within minutes, and that's never going to die for me because I love dogs so much. Right. And so that's like, I'm really grateful for that, because that's the loop that never dies for me, that it dies for other people in business or entrepreneurs or even people who work for other people, is that inspiration kind of falls off. But for me, whenever I see a dog struggling, and I'll like just a couple days ago, I did free training for like a logo rescue just because I wanted to help, and my schedule is really busy and it costs money typically. And I was like, I just want to help these guys because it's going to take me 5 minutes. And they left crying and like, holy shit, so that's the cool thing about my job too, is I'm instantly able, like I'm seeing this dog struggle, and they could be put down or they could just be living a life of stress their entire life. And for me, it's just easy for me to go, oh, I'm going to change this right now. That's inspiring for me every time.
Yeah. I mean, how important is it for somebody to choose the right breed for them and for their lifestyle, just to set this dog up or set them up for success?
It's important, but to be honest, nobody listens to that. Like very rarely, they just get a dog because it just falls in their lap,
Right?
Or they go to the shelter and get like a mixed dog, which is fine. Which just I do a lot of videos on don't get these dogs, just to be proactive. I'm like, because these are the dogs that I know. It's the same thing you were just saying. It's like, this is a Ferrari. This is a Honda. You're a Honda guy.
Right.
Get a Honda.
Oh, what's less than a Honda? That's me.
A Miata?
I have a Puggle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
fits me though, man. She's great.
You got, what is it? The old like electric car that
I have the most devolved
Fiat. That's what you have.
The most devolved form of a wolf ever laying on my couch right now.
Yeah.
But I love her, man. She's great.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I want people to be happy. Like at the end of the day, I want people to be happy, but genetics do matter. I try to talk about it a lot, but there's so many variances of genetics too. Like there's so many variances of shepherds, so many variances of labs and golden retrievers. And, it's really a crapshoot. That's why it's hard. I just tell people typically, and those are like some of my most viral pieces of content. 'Cause I'm like, don't get these dogs, and people are all up in arms. But I'm in the context of don't get these dogs unless you have time to train.
Right.
Because people get like, we see a lot, especially nowadays, we see a lot of people getting these big protective dogs, and they start complaining that they're doing big protective dog shit. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what you got. Right. So that's really difficult.
That's what you have.
I do.
One,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have like the number. It's like number one on my list all the time to not get. And the breeder I got him from tried so hard to convince me not to get one, and I'm like, this is a good breeder.
Because they're saying, hey,
don't do it. Yeah, and this, I mean, it was before he knew my profession, right? So it was a little bit different, but yeah.
What kind of dog?
It's a Borbal, so he's a South African Mastiff, and they were I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, probably 2 years ago now, like up in Moreau, that girl got kidnapped. Yeah, this was right down the road from my house. I used to go there as a kid. And having kids, it scared me. And I was like, what? In my head, as a professional who travels the world working with behavioral cases, typically dogs who want to take the face off my head, what is the most innately aggressive and protective dog I've ever worked with, and the Borble's the absolute number one on top. And so that's what I got. And my wife and I were leaning towards the lab because I had like Malinois and Dutchies and working line, police line dogs before, and we were like, okay, let's calm down a little bit. We're traveling a lot. Let's get a chiller dog so it's easy for people to take care of the dogs when we travel. And I was going to get a lab, but then I reversed that completely. Like completely went the other way.
And we're gonna go this way. Actually,
Yeah.
100% like the opposite way.
Yeah, but that was scary. That was scary, dude. So it's like, and if you're living that close, oh my God.
Well, it just hits home, I think, for everybody. You know, like this girl, for people who are listening or even watching, like this girl, it's like 5-6-year-old girl just went on a walk in a campsite. You know, beautiful campsite. Well, no, I used to go there all the time as a kid. Beautiful, nice campsite. And this guy was just hiding in the woods and came out and took her. And luckily, they found her like a week later. But it was like heart-wrenching for the entire community. I mean, it's a national story. It wasn't just us, but just being so close. And, you know, I had a bunch of guys that were on the team that went in and got her and stuff, and just hearing the stuff. And it's like,
those guys are dudes, man. One of my neighbors was part of that team, and like, yeah,
those are the guys you want in there. I'm like, yeah, that like the people I know that do that stuff. I'm like, yeah, I want that in there.
Then he moved to another neighborhood, and I go, Sam, it's not across the street anymore. I go, I got to figure this out, or I got to learn jujitsu. I got to do something right now.
Yeah. Anyway, so I got him just because that just like it shook my world, man. And I was just like, and like Borbles are just so cool too. Like, and he gives me a run for my money, man. Like it's like a joke that I tell all the time in my stories and stuff. I'm like, man, I'm a professional, and this dog gives me such a run for my money, like legit. And I knew that getting into it, but you know. So anyway, he is what he is. Like if you come in or anywhere in my property, like he lets you know that he's there. And I'm like, it makes, like, even right now I'm gone and my kids are home, and I feel so much better knowing that if like a leaf falls and this dog is about to crack the window to get outside, and he's big. His dad was 210, his mom was 185, and he's getting 160, and he's big and he's loud, and his neck is like a BF Goodrich. He's like huge, and he walks around just patrolling all day long, and that's what I got him for. But in the wrong hands, again, like I have this trademark called No Bad Dogs. It's my podcast name and everything, and I talk about it a lot. I'm like, if somebody gets this dog, and then that dog does what that dog was bred to do, people are like, my dog's going after my...
Is that like pit bulls get a bad rap?
Yeah. I mean, pit bulls are just like the most loyal dogs ever, and that's why people make them do bad shit. They do have genetics of having prey drive and wanting to fight, but you know, they're my favorite. They're the top of my list of dogs to train by far. Like they're the easiest dogs to train, that and labs. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Just because they're able to learn if you do
they'll
things correctly.
They'll do anything for you. Like even if it's bad shit, they'll do it. And that's why people use them so much to do bad stuff.
Is also too your world, like the fitness world is like, we say it's like the Wild West, because there's no licensure, there's no governing body, there's no like clear path to like, well, I go to school and I study this and I become a CPA and I go to a firm. So it leaves open just this like giant range of skill sets that then it's like the consumer has to get educated, about what a quality service is. For us, it's in terms of a quality workout, what's going to be safe for you, what's going to be sustainable. Do you feel like your industry is similar, where it's like this wide kind of range?
It's exactly that, and it's tough. There's huge politics in our industry, believe it or not.
How so?
I know, right? It sounds crazy.
I mean, they're everywhere, right?
It's funny because like in our industry, it's like the number one thing that is talked about within professions. I'll explain it in a minute, but yeah, it's definitely that. Like you can go out and get it. Like I don't have a certification, but there's a school, there's a big national school that's very well known and respected, and I would help certify their dog trainers just because of my experience, right? So it's and listen, like getting the certification is huge. Like educating yourself is important, and I think that if I could have went to college to do certain things, I would have. It's not in my DNA to do it, honestly. And so, yeah, you can open up a spot right now across the street and become a dog trainer. You could also get a certification within 72 hours.
That's the same as fitness.
Exactly. So really, like you said, the clients, our dog owners, much like your clients, they have a hard time navigating through the shit of like who's good, who's bad, who actually will yield results. You know, because there's people out there that are like 3 times certified, and they spend more time collecting certificates to hang on the wall than training dogs.
This is like, I first realized this in this realm when I did an internship in Boston at this place, Cressy Sports Performance. The most qualified intern in our whole group, there were 6 of us, was a chiropractor from Canada. Like, book smart, genius, could tell you all the biomechanics and the anatomy and physiology. But when it came to, here's 3 humans in front of you, let's have a conversation, lead them through a session, let's connect with them, just could not put it together, could not hold a conversation. And I go, like, maybe the school stuff's, you need to know a base of all of these scientific things, but like, I got to connect with somebody. I need to give them a good experience. I need to give them results.
Yeah, it's like the I learned there's this Gary Vee quote a couple of years ago that he said that he'd rather, who would you rather eat from, the little kid who grew up in grandma's kitchen all of his life, or the culinary student, right? Like it's like that in our industry and again, like having certifications and everything is great. But I've also like seen certified dog trainers who I wouldn't give a hermit crab to. Right. Like it's awful, right? So because with what we do too, it's extremely art driven, like extremely passion driven. Like you have to be good with animals. Like it's like I'm not a good mathematician, I'm not a good musician, but I'm really good with animals. I worked with wolves, I work with dogs for a living. I love animals. Like I've always had this connection with them. And I think everybody kind of has this aura, this energy that allows them to pick up a guitar or pick up a paintbrush or pick up a mic and sing. They just have it. And you're like, holy shit, right? There's so many artists in the world that aren't certified, like aren't they're not educated through the traditional education system, like the John Mayers of the world. Like they go through traditional training, but some of them don't at all, right? Like there's so many chefs out there that
I bet a lot some musicians, they can't read a sheet of music, but they'll shred.
But like Dave Matthews is one of those guys, right? Like, oh, Dave doesn't have a traditional background in music and he can't read whatever. And it's or like Casey Neistat's a perfect example. He's like one of the biggest YouTubers on the planet, in my opinion. Like he's one of the best as well. He didn't know how to edit videos good, so his editing style was like very different, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's that Casey Neistat style." And he did an interview one time. He's like, "It's not my style. It's just I couldn't do what everyone else was doing."
Right,
and
but it became his style.
Exactly. Like so again, like I don't want to talk bad about educations and certifications because they do have their place for sure. However, when you're working with dogs, you got to have way more than that because you're gonna get hurt. Like you're gonna get really hurt. So yeah, it is a wild west, and the politics on it. To go back to it is, there's some people who believe that telling dogs no or correcting dogs for behaviors is abuse, which is, to give context, like they're called positive reinforcement only trainers. So they only teach dogs through positive reinforcement.
Which is like, what, good job, here's a treat?
Right. So by definition, positive reinforcement is to encourage a behavior to happen again in the future, right? So when you have a dog that's trying to kill somebody, or a dog that's pulling on the leash, or a dog that's jumping on somebody, their only strategic opportunity is to reward a dog. And it's one of the biggest reasons why dogs are put down in the world to date. They're scamming people out of money. Hundreds of thousands of dollars a year go to these programs, and it's tough. So like for me, I always tell trainer, I do this shadow program where trainers come in and they're like, man, what do you think about the positive reinforcement only trainers? I'm like, they are the best marketing people in my field. Like I get more referrals from people finding my videos because they worked this. They're like, yeah, I was just told to give the dog a bunch of cookies, and distract them if they were reactive or whatever. Or they didn't believe in like correcting dogs if they did something wrong. I'm like, imagine if my son went up to grab a knife and I just distracted him. He never learned that was wrong. And
It's a good analogy, man.
I was just going to say in my head, I'm like, what if you never told a kid no?
Exactly, dude. It's inhumane, really, is what it is. And what happens in the dog training world is a lot of people's philosophies become their ideologies, and their ideologies becomes their personalities. So if they got into this industry, because a lot of times, here's what it is, to give context and to be fair, when you get into working with dogs, especially as a younger person or as somebody who's not as experienced in working with dogs, you would just typically think of developing behaviors, teaching behaviors, right? And 99% of that is positive reinforcement, right? You're teaching sit, down, stay, heel. You're teaching a younger puppy how to develop skill sets, right? Through free shaping and through positive reinforcement. That's what I do. I'm 99% that. But the problem is the moment that the dog, because those trainers don't work with the dogs that I work with. The dogs who are in the shelters, the dogs who have bite histories, the dog who kill other dogs for fun.
Right. When you talk about reactivity and aggression, this is what...
Yeah, so they think in their head, Like when they're like, oh, you should never correct a dog. They think that somebody coming in to punish a puppy for doing something, or which is still appropriate, especially if you have like a dog like I have,
Right?
Because it's a literal, it's an absolute game changer if you don't with dogs like that, and I see them all day. So that is the politics in our industry, that there are people out there, and I've even seen it gone to a point as extreme, not all of them, but as extreme as they would rather put the dog down than tell the dog no. And I swear on my life that that's a thing. It's sad to see, but the only good thing is people like myself and other people in the industry are doing so well because it's political. It's kind of like our politics too. There's a system that looks better in mainstream media where it's like positive reinforcement only, and to the average person, like here's what happens is in the like in the lobbyist or the lawmaking things, they would go to a lobbyist or a lawmaker and they would say, there's people out there that are abusing dogs and we need to ban them. And as a lobbyist or somebody who loves dogs, or as a governor,
Like, I don't want dogs to get hurt.
of course,
Right.
ban it. So ban the tools that help you hold dogs accountable to teach them right from wrong, right? And so it's the same thing it's context and it's misinformation, and it's really difficult to navigate, especially because the dogs are sitting there like, well, I'm going to die if this doesn't happen.
The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Bombas. Bombas makes my favorite pair of socks, hands down, alongside the most comfortable and durable underwear, t-shirts, and other everyday clothing staples. Their wide variety of sock lengths, colors, and patterns have you covered, whether you're working out, going out, or lounging at home. I love their merino wool blend athletic ankle sock for long days of coaching at CDSF and getting in workouts myself. And if I'm at home doing work around the house, you better believe I'm wearing my Bombas Sunday slippers with their comfy memory foam midsole. And when you buy from Bombas, you're also buying for those in need. For every item you purchase, Bombas donates one item to people in overnight shelters, transitional living facilities, rehab centers, Title I schools, and medical service professionals. Take my word, if you want to upgrade your sock game to one that's more comfortable, durable, fashionable, and charitable, head over to the Bombas link in this episode's description to browse their full collection of everyday wear, and don't forget to use code CDSF20 for 20% off your first order.
So that's the politics. It's
but
crazy.
I mean, and it's just like the polarization, like I'm sure everywhere you see it with fitness, right?
Every industry.
It's like
That's the algorithm. That's what the algorithm has done so right now, and how people have to try to, like, people like us and whatnot who are putting out good content, you have to keep doubling down on it because over time, hopefully.
But even just how people think, right? Fitness is like, well, you have all these schools of teaching, right? I have functional movement, I have postural restoration, I have like a CFSC, I have this, and it's like, okay, this is right and you're wrong. If you're not doing it this way, then you're completely wrong.
Right.
And it's like, hey, we're all just trying to help people.
Yeah,
Right.
That's it, man. It's tough. I try to stay out of it. Like, there's people who just like to bicker. I don't ever do that. I don't ever like.
You got to not read comments, right? Or do you?
I try to not to, but it depends on what platform.
Well, because you want to engage, right?
It depends on what platform.
Yeah.
On YouTube, I'll read all the comments.
Where are you not reading any?
TikTok, Instagram, try not to. But I just feel like, I did a conference. I was a keynote speaker at a conference in England last year, and one of my guys who asked me to come on, he said it's so good. He said, TikTok is like standing out front of a business handing out flyers, and it's like people are just going to tell you to F off and like whatever. Like, your relationship with these people are so momentary that they're going to give you they're going to make you feel like shit really quick. And then Instagram is kind of like sitting down and talking to somebody, and then like YouTube, like full length, or even podcasting is like going out to dinner with somebody at a Michelin star restaurant. Like you really get to know somebody.
Yeah.
So then your efforts of criticizing them and actually misunderstanding them that's very limited.
That's a great point. Cause like, hey, here's an hour and a half. Let's get the full picture.
Or even like 15 minutes, right? Nowadays it's like you watch something for 10 seconds. You don't know it happens all the time, right? So yeah, I tend not to read the comments. It's been a big part of like my mental health journey as a creator. But
did it bother you for a while?
Oh,
People
yeah.
saying negative things?
Yeah, man, because I was like, same thing, like you just said, like I'm just trying to help. Like it's the same thing. Like you're just trying to help somebody who's massively overweight. Their confidence is low. They're not healthy. They may not live as long. Their family, and you're just trying to help them. And then there's somebody on the internet's like, that you should never have told that person to do this.
Yeah, don't do that squat.
Meanwhile, they're sending you emails saying like, dude, you're literally changing my life. Thank you so much. And you're like,
yeah,
it sucks, but it's part. Like the more that you recognize it, and the more that you like understand it, I think the healthier it is. But in the beginning, I was like, somebody would come in with a dog and they're like, this dog's going to be put down in 12 hours unless we can stop this. I would stop it. And then people would have a problem with how I stopped it. And it's like, there's something wrong with you, and I would get into the comments and argue. And
what's an example of like telling a dog no, like using leash pressure?
Sure. Yeah. Like, so like, let's say there's like food up here and the dog jumps up and they're on a leash and you say off and you correct the dog to discourage them. There's people who would be like, you should never do that, right? And and I've done this, like on the streets, I've done polls. 99.9% of people, they're like, yeah, that's fair. But there's just this 1%, because like I said, their ideology becomes their personality.
1% can be loud, right?
Yeah, they're the loudest. So then but that's how like shit happens in everything. And so it's, so again, it's like, people are always like, Tom, you have such a big, one of the biggest platforms in the dog space, and it's like, why don't you use it more to battle this stuff? I'm like, I don't need to.
Yeah,
I'm putting it out. Like, read between the lines. The clients and the dog community will watch the different things and read between the lines. That's it. I don't need to say anything. I just do my thing.
When did it first hit you that like, oh, this online thing is picking up, I'm starting to get paid, and like maybe my business isn't just training dogs in person, like this other side is becoming way more lucrative and I have to shift my time into content creation?
Yeah, that's something I've always been pretty, like, I never thought it would really be me, but I always knew, I'm like, if you can reach millions of people from your phone or from your laptop, instead of having to go and work with one person at a time, A, for somebody in my industry, you help way more dog owners, right. But B, you have an opportunity to live, in my opinion, a more fulfilling life because you're reaching more people. And then there was just like this one like month where people started calling me Tom Davis instead of just like me. They were like, "Oh, I love Tom Davis," and I'm like, "Why are they using my first and last name for something?" I was like, "That was really weird," and that's how I'm like, am I becoming like an identity thing? Like, am I becoming like a figure? And this was years ago, and it was like, that's when I really knew I started like actually reaching my community, where people were like using my first and last name together,
right?
And that was the first time I was like, why are they doing that? And I started realizing, I'm like, because other people, I love Tom Davis.
Because like that's your handle.
Yeah, and it was like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but that's when I really took a step back. I'm like, whoa, this is weird. Like, I'm not just like a local thing anymore, right? Like a local upstate New York thing. It was like on comments on YouTube, like people were like adding my name together, and then the other people would be doing it, and I'm like, is that a thing? That's a thing now? Like, and that's when I knew, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So anyway, so for me, it was kind of like that pinnacle of like, take it and run with it, like go with it. Like, this is actually happening. Like, until you can have the self-realization that it's happening, and still to this day, it's not, there's steps to it. But once that started happening, I was like, wow, I can reach all these different people. Like, if 100 people watch my video and I worked with one person, I'm like, that's like 100xing your help. So that's the way I looked at it.
And then how strategic did you start to become, or maybe not, with like, well, this is what I want to film, or is it just like, here's a camera, film me doing shit?
In the beginning, it was that. It was doing what you guys are doing. Like, it was just putting up a camera, not even like mics like this, just recording me working with the dog. And it wasn't until, so I had my first facility. I used to do in-homes, but when I got my first facility, it was like in South Glens Falls, where I was from, And once I started getting people traveling, to give people context if they're listening to this from out of town, it's like once people started traveling from like Saratoga or even Albany, once people started traveling like 20 to even an hour to get to me, that's when I was like, I think I'm doing something different, because they're passing probably 35 dog trainers to get to me, right? It'd be like people coming from like Virginia or something like to train with you, and you're like, do I have something different that other people don't have? And that's where I started setting up the camera. And I never thought it would. I just wanted to help dogs, and I still do. It's just now it's definitely a business. I never thought it would be a business or something that gets to, travel the world with.
Yeah, which is awesome, because you have your facilities here, dogs are going there to get training.
Yeah, we have a full staff at both facilities that are just pumping 7 days a week.
So other people are training dogs there. How much do you train them with, like, this is how I do things, this is how we do things?
I'm really, really lucky because I have such a good staff. Like, shout out to my staff because they're the best. They like, my turnover rate is super low.
That's huge.
We have trainers that have been there for 8 years, 7 years, 6 years, a couple 4 years, and then we're hiring on new people that really enjoy it. So I don't have to be there too much because I have this kind of system, this hierarchy that kind of goes down. They train them, I train them, and then they train them. It's kind of like a martial art, right? You get a black belt from somebody, and then it just keeps kind of going down the line.
Yeah, that's so important, especially when you get into a field with passion. Our last podcast, we with our whole staff, just talking about owning and like scaling a gym like this. It's like people are so passionate, they go into it with strong passion and just kind of have blinders to like the structure of business to create longevity and be able to scale.
Yeah, and I'm the oldest person in my company, which isn't saying a lot, but it's like I have a lot of young people in my company, and they all work really hard. And the cool thing is like, I don't financially get any money from that company. Like, I do my own thing, and I don't need that facility. I don't need any of the facility, to be completely honest. Like, I really am happy to be able to create a space for them to be able to live their dream. If somebody told me or you, it's like, hey, I'm gonna open up this space and like let you do what you love to do. Like, I'll pay the rent, I'll get you clients, you just gotta show up. It's like, really? That's it? Like, no, like, you don't have to, no taxes, no marketing, like, you just, and that's really cool for me, because when I was growing up trying to get this thing off, dude, I struggled so much with getting support and getting money and trying it. And so like, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to give these young guys and girls a space that they can pursue their passions and be able to run down what they love to do. And they all wake up, they crank rap music and they train dogs and they're having a good time. And it's cool because they're also like obviously an extension of me and vice versa. So when I win, they win. So, people are always in like taking pictures and like they really like that too, because they're a part of something bigger than just that.
That's huge. That's so awesome. Important. That's for longevity, knowing you're bigger, you're part of something bigger than just you, and you're kind of like growing and building something together.
Yeah, and whenever I do something cool or big or whatever, like they win. I hope and I feel like they feel a sense of proud. Like people come and like I said, like it's cool for them to be a part of that. Like they're always like touring and stopping by and buying merch and like it's cool. It's cool to see like them, because they work just as hard as I did. Not as long as me, but they work just as hard as I did, and I trust them with my name. And let's put it this way: if they all looked at me tomorrow and said like, "Hey, we're all going to go our separate ways," I'd shut it down. I'm like, okay, good run, and I'd just keep doing my thing, right? Because it's completely separate, right? But it's pretty cool, man. Like I'm really proud of that, because, like I said, there's not too many places when you're young to be able to go to work, and have somebody like me and my wife and my team to be able to say like, do your thing. Like we're not micromanaging, we're not breathing down your throat, like. And my staff, like I trust them, and they'll come to me. They'll be like, "Hey, this person needs to go." I'm like, gone. So it's pretty straightforward.
The music's key. We're music all day in here.
Yeah.
What's your music?
They listen to a lot of like gangster rap. So like they'll go, but it switches. Like they'll do it like Pop Smoke to Kendrick to then like Sleeping with Sirens to like to more like Taking Back Sunday or like old Fall Out Boy. It changes up. Like every time I walk in there, I'm like, What's the vibe? You know? And also
what mood are we in today?
Yeah, it also just depends on like who's there.
Yeah, that's huge. That's like us in here, man.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like, and that's cool. Like I said, like we got a 15,000 square foot facility, so when you walk in, it's like huge murals everywhere, like this, like signed jerseys everywhere. Like it's really cool, and they're just pumping music, training dogs, having the time of their life, and it's really cool to see. And I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of them to be able to live that life. It's pretty cool.
How cool is it Hoff helped you get started? Jeff's great. Jeff Hoffman. We're just talking he just signed a nice contract with the Blue Jays. But yeah, what a great dude, man.
Yeah, he connected me. Yeah, he's great. He's great. And I worked with his wife and his dog and him when he played for the Rockies. And then it was just like a domino effect. It was just like two more people sent their dogs to me, and then I went back to Colorado. And this was, this is probably like 6 years ago now. And it was first starting out, and it was like my first big, like, I was working with the governor at the time, and I've worked with some other like people. Not that the governor, you know, is small cookies, but you know, it was cool.
It's no Jeff Hoffman cookies.
No Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So then I worked with them, and then they kind of connected me with other people, and I'm still like pretty. I know I'm like, I would consider those guys my friends too, because you know, I really went above and beyond because I went to their house. I flew to Colorado. They brought me out to games. They brought me out to dinner. Like those are my homies, and they connected me with a bunch of other people. And of course, like in the MLB, you're going to get traded at some point. So then they go to other places and they connect me with their teammates, and it just keeps going. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's pretty sick.
That is awesome. And how much are you traveling now? You're speaking, you're doing training?
Yeah, so let's just put it this way. My son just turned, he's about 2.5, and he's been on about 152 flights.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so the last 2 years have been a lot. Like, we travel a lot, like Delta Diamond member. Like, I was so high in Delta Diamond that they extended it, like, another year. They're like, you're diamond for the next 2 years type stuff. And so we travel a lot, and to be honest, like that's what really fuels me to continue, like to gain new I lived in my buddy's tent in his backyard from a small town, going to the Golden Corral because I couldn't afford lunch because my buddy was the manager, and like not being able to do anything. And so for me to be able to go to a different country that doesn't speak English and put on a sold out room to do what I love is a literal dream come true. I think anybody in the world would argue couldn't argue that that's not like a bucket list. So I hit the ground running, and like when we got opportunities to travel and do seminars, we just took everything. And this year we're traveling, but we're not traveling as much because my son, it's a lot. Like once my son was asking, like even when we're here in Saratoga where we're locally, like even like when we go home for dinner, he's like, are we going to the hotel or are we going home? Like he just gotten to this point where he's more comfortable in like the Delta Sky Club than his, like his basement.
Yeah.
Right.
So
it's been normalized for him. So we want to make him feel more, at home.
Yeah. So it's a sport though, dude, like traveling, because we travel with our team too. So we travel like deep, 8 to 9 people deep, with our team, our production and our, our staff and our everything, man. It's like, that's a lot of logistics. It's hotels, it's Ubers, it's rental cars, it's Airbnbs. There's so much logistics. And then you got to think like there's all these people that are traveling, paying all this money to come and see me. Like it has to be done right. So we have a lot of like, I'm super blessed, man. Like I could die happy today just knowing that I've been able to do what I love, helping people with their dogs at the level that I'm doing it at. But I don't think a lot of people realize like how much I'm traveling. Like it's so much. And I'm doing seminars, I'm doing keynote talks in other countries, I'm doing a lot of TV, I'm doing a lot of stuff in the States, but not this year. We have some things on the list, but nothing compared to what we've been doing.
With two young kids and the traveling and your businesses and what are you doing for yourself to just like, okay, let me make sure I'm staying healthy. I'm staying as mentally fit as I can. Yeah. I said you're an alpha brain guy. We got the nootropic drinks right here. But how conscious are you of that? Or you're just like, hey, right now I'm going. Yeah.
No. 2 years ago I was going. I didn't give a shit. Like I was like a yes man. I was like, I'm going. Like I don't care. Like I'm doing it. Like I'm gonna, because it was always, and it still is, it's just not as severe. It's always like all this is gonna be taken from me. Like you got lucky one year, you got lucky this year, you got lucky with this client, you got lucky with this opportunity, And at some point, it's all going to come crashing down, and you're going to be back in the pizza shop in Southlands Falls. And so the first couple of years when I got these bigger opportunities, with clients or, with TV opportunities and stuff, it was like, go, 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 go. Don't say no, just go.
Mm-hmm.
And before, prior to kids, I could.
Right.
And my wife was down. She's super supportive. You have to have that. So it was, but now I've kind of been like, okay, I've kind of like, I can take a step back. And so I've been really focusing on my mental health the last 2 years. I've been focusing on my physical health the last 2 years because, having kids changes that. Like, you want to live long, you want to live healthy, you want to be there, you want to do all the things, and you want to like crush as much as you can.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot to dial that in, a lot. It's been a big focus of mine.
Yeah, I'm Paul and Dan say, because Paul still plays flag football. Dan, my other business partner, plays baseball. It's like Dan works out for baseball. Paul works out for football. Just trying to be a dad. That's it.
Yeah.
Working out to be a dad.
Yeah.
Not pull your hamstring playing pickleball.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's
Jordan. That's funny.
Yeah, I was there for it.
But Jay, we were
playing 8-year-olds.
We were crushing. Don't stop.
They were like
we were
12.
killing them.
We were doing really well. Yeah, and then
You pulled a hammy?
Pickleball, hard lunge forward, and I knew right
That's
away.
such a common, like at this age, it's like such a common injury.
It was so funny. I'm standing on the sideline. I don't think anybody else heard it, and I just hear him go to Jordan. He's like, dude, I just think I fucking popped my hand.
Dude, I know. And then I'm scanning the crowd to see who can play for me. Dude, it's cool though. It's like a block party.
Yeah, it was. It's a
very
lot of
cool
fun.
setup. Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Very fun.
Yeah, it's been like, I've gotten more into fitness more now than I've ever been. I just like back in the day, dude. It was like in my 20s. I'm 36 now, and I've been doing this for 13, 14 years now. So in my 20s, so I grinded super hard, 7 days. I mean, sure, you've done it yourself, but it's like I've grinded super hard 7 days a week, whatever. And it was like, drinking at night with the homies, and then blasting yourself with caffeine in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then once you get older, like everything changes, like your hormones change, everything changes. Like, and it took me a long time to realize, like, why do I feel like this? Mm-hmm. Like, why do I feel like this? Why am I thinking these things? Like, why am I having panic attacks? Like, what is happening? And that's my relationship with caffeine changed completely. My relationship with alcohol changed completely. And then I just started focusing on myself. And I'm now at a point where I can, fortunately enough, afford the things, right? So I go to a naturopathic doctor. So I get blood tests every 6 months. I check all my levels, my cortisol levels, testosterone levels, how my liver's working. I do all the proactive things, right? I have a sauna at my house now, so I got a barrel sauna at my house that I try to do every night, and then I have a cold plunge too. I have a Morosco cold plunge.
Oh, see, those are awesome. That's the real deal ones.
Yeah,
right there.
It's changed my life. And then my wife has always been into fitness. She's just works out like almost every day, even through both pregnancies. She's a beast, and so I've been working out like 3 to 5 days a week, and that's been super helpful for my mental health, eliminating the anxiety and eliminating like all the things that happen to somebody who wants to take over the world but can't, where you just feel constantly suppressed and frustrated. And then I've been doing jiu-jitsu 3 to 5 days a week now, hitting that really, really hard, and that's changed my life as well. So I think just taking a lot of things out of my life that didn't have purpose in my life, and even though it sucks, but like, dude, my genetics, I can't, the other day I went out for pizza after we went snowboarding a couple weekends ago, and I went out for pizza and I had one beer. The next day I'm not even exaggerating, I was trashed. Yeah. One beer. It was like an IPA, but still.
Yeah, that's real. See, I've never...
Dude, I couldn't... I was like, are you kidding me? Back in the day, I'd kill a 30 rack of Keystone and wake up and
Keystone.
Yeah, well, that 30 rack of Keystone equals one IPA.
Remember, Paul, Jordan, you're younger than us. Remember in college, the Keystones, you could get in a 30, there was like a special orange can they tossed in every one. Yeah. So we would just buy, I didn't know, dude, and just trying to get to the orange can.
Just want the orange can, man.
Yeah.
We'd make wizard staffs. You tape them together. Don't know fucking why. Just a bunch of idiots in college.
Yeah.
But
fun times.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, mine has been my biggest thing. I stopped eating after 9 this year.
PM?
Because I couldn't stop myself. It wasn't like I was hungry. I'd get home, long day, put the kid to sleep, turn on the TV, and something in my brain would go, TV on, you're on the couch, go. And I would just eat till I was gorged, dude. Wake up bloated.
Like what? Like what would you eat?
Everything.
Everything, dude. I eat my dinner, and then maybe a peanut butter and jelly, and then maybe a bowl of cereal, and then just not good.
See, I do that too. Like if I got into weed, so like if I drink like a cannabis drink at night just to sleep better, and also it's a great alternative when like everyone else is like drinking. I'll just have like a weed seltzer and be like so chill, and I know I'm gonna feel better than all you guys.
Dude, shout out to them. I don't smoke, but yeah, I'm into the weed seltzers now. Yeah, it chills me out at night.
But dude,
I don't.
The munchies are real. So
the munchies are real. Yeah.
When you're and of course like now you could get weed seltzers at the Cumbies in New York now because it's 100% legal, right? So it's like a lot harder. But yeah, dude. So that was huge for me. As I had to like, I'm really not hungry. It's just the weed. Like chill out.
Yeah.
That self-control at night is tough.
It is tough.
Like
yeah.
I used to be the fucked up thing is like when I lived in like New York City and stuff, I was way better about it. Like my roommates would be like, "How can you like have like 4 Oreos and not eat the whole thing?" And
Jay,
I'm like, "I don't know." And now you put a box of Oreos in front of me, I'm eating the whole thing.
I'm not. I've never been a big weed guy, but I did a 20 milligram drink the other night.
That's heavy for
Buddy,
you.
That's heavy for you.
Sam was out with a friend. She got home. She's like,
where were you?
On the couch.
You were the
She
couch.
yeah.
You
She goes,
were the couch.
Is you okay? I go, yeah, I'm fine.
Did you get the munchies?
I just no. I mean,
No.
probably
No, because he was the
I
couch.
just fucking went to sleep, bro. Yeah.
yeah, there's like a threshold there.
True.
Of like when you go over a little over, then you can't get up.
Yeah, you are wherever you're sitting. You have become one with that.
But
piece of
dude, I
furniture.
mean, it's been huge because especially when I stopped, like I don't drink out. Like I told my wife, I'm like, because she's always kind of like bust my balls a little bit about it because.
About what?
Not drinking, like, you know, if we go out and she's like, I'm going to have a glass of wine or a cocktail, like, she's a normal human, so she can have 2 or 3 drinks the next morning, be completely fine. And I'm so jealous of that. Like, I got buddies who can drink, and I think it's just your DNA, it's your genetics,
100%.
it's how your body breaks things down, and I'm, like, I don't want to say I'm jealous of them being able to drink, but there's some times where you're like, man, I want to, like, there's times where, like, we did this sold-out tour in Australia a couple years ago, and everyone was like drinking, like Aussie, and like just having a good time with all these Australians, like beautiful weather, like, and I'm like, I want to be able to like let loose a little bit, but I'm like, I know that if I had more than 2 beers, the next 3 days are going to be miserable. But it's also, again, like my point is like being able to stop things that make me feel a certain way.
Well, with kids too, right? I don't want to wake up the next day. My daughter's ready to go.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah, dude. Since my kids have been born, I've probably had like 5 drinks like in the last 2 years.
That's what's killed my drinking a lot was just like, I got to be there and can't be.
I just think like that, and then like just focusing on my career and leveling up has been huge. Just that.
When you're traveling doing seminars, you are teaching who? Other trainers?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So typically what we'll do is we'll open it up to dog owners. So we'll have like 8 working spots. So people who bring their dogs, and then we'll have an unlimited audit spots. And typically the audit spots are trainers. I would say 80% of my audience when I travel and do seminars are professional trainers. Yeah, so it's a good mixture of dog owners and trainers.
You do law enforcement dogs too?
I have, yeah. I just did a talk for the United States Special Forces. I was asked to do their canine conference every year, which isn't open to civilians. It's a kind of an invite only, and it's pretty cool, right? Because I'm like, again, like somebody who, I think when you go the non-traditional route of education, you're always trying to like get validated in some way, and like, look, mom, I'm actually doing something, right?
Yeah.
And just in your head, it's not real, but sometimes that hits me where I'm like, so having the United States Special Forces, the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets, and the Rangers come out and be like, hey, we want you to teach us about this. So I've done military. I've sold police dogs. It's just not like my passion. Like I like helping people like you who are like, dude, my dog is doing this. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I like.
My puggle won't stop barking at the FedEx guy.
Yeah. I like stuff like that. Like the military and law enforcement's fun, but at the same time, dude, like you wouldn't believe. Like I've sold dogs to people. I've sold dogs to canine guys who have never owned a dog ever.
You mean you breed?
No, but we would purchase dogs. We would import dogs from Europe, train them, sell them, and we would sell dogs to people who like I remember this one time we sold this dog, and the guy was like sitting there kind of nervous. I'm like, "Are you good, dude?" And we had beautiful black German Shepherd. We trained right down the road, and he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm just a little nervous." I'm like, he's good. Like, he's like, "I just never like had a dog." And I'm like, "This is your first police dog?" He's like, "No, I've never owned a dog." So it's the same thing in like law enforcement. It's a lottery. Like, you just apply for it and you get it. And so I just realized, I'm like, man, that's tough for me because I love law enforcement. I support them. A lot of them are my friends. They train every weekend at my facility. But I've also just seen a lot of really, really, really bad dog handlers that own, now they have 2 loaded guns on them, and it's terrible. So it's tough for me because also there's like this barrier of like, you know, people, they want help. But then even like when I did the special forces, I like did this talk and I'm like, "Any questions?" And it was crickets. And I was like, "Okay, do you hate me?" Or like, like it's just a different style, right? Like, I'm used to like people coming and being like, "I really need help. Like, please help me." And I'm like, "Yes." Like, I thrive off that. Like, when people are like, "Yeah, it's good," I'm like, I'm not used to that. So I don't know. That's different for me.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. Why German Shepherds? That's usually your military police dog, right?
Yeah, now they're, somewhat. A lot of it now is like Malinois and Dutch Shepherds because they're smaller and they're less prone to heat exhaustion in overseas and places like that. But German Shepherds are just historically like the working dog that does good at both. They do good at apprehension. They do good at scent detection. They like working is your answer.
Right.
Like they really like working. They could be really good dual purpose dogs. They're super obedient and they can turn on aggression when they need to. But nowadays you're seeing a lot more. You're seeing a lot more like Mals and Dutchies. But yeah, still German Shepherds.
You ever get a dog and somebody told you the dog was 4 years old, but the dog was really 14 years old?
No, not that big of a difference.
Listen to this shit.
Well, you just told it.
Yeah, but you got that. Jordan's cat. He thought his cat was 4.
Yeah, wacky story. Yeah, I adopted a cat at 2 years old. It seemed, childlike, and I trusted the vet at the shelter. I didn't know any better. So I moved recently, and I took him to a new vet, and they're examining his teeth, and she asked his age again. I reiterated 4. She's just like, nah.
Try 10 plus more years.
Yeah, she stepped out for a minute, came back. She's like, hey, she was real gentle with me, like she was telling me he was sick or something. And she's like, yeah, a cat, I'm going to say 14, but at least 9 or 10. And then I got an ultrasound. He needed an ultrasound. for an unrelated matter, and yeah, they saw buildup in his kidneys. That was like, he's old. So yeah, I thought I had a baby. I got an old man.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you get like in the industries, it's like you get like a vet and they're like a doctor and they're like, yeah, this cat's 4, and somebody else is like 10. You're 10 years off.
Yeah,
not even close.
And as somebody who's
not even in the ballpark,
I think I care for my pets well, but I don't like understand medically what's going on. I fully trust what they say.
100%.
No idea.
100%. It's tough. Yeah. It's tough. But I think like with podcasting and education now, like so many podcasts out there with like experts and people who give like really good advice, you're starting to second guess some of that, which is good. And it's good and bad, but it's the same thing. It's like finding alternative ways and also just understanding that that's not, and that happens with us. Like we have a lot of like board certified PhD level behaviorist. And it's not just me. There's tons of other trainers that can do this, but I've done this myself hundreds of times, 4K on video. They'll say, my behaviorist said that we could never do this. And within 10 minutes, I'm doing it. And I'm like, they're so far from reality. And so anyway, it is, so going back to like the dog training space and how the spectrum is so different. And it's crazy. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, but that's too, like, relating it to fitness, right? You have your people that work in a lab and they do research, controlled environments. Research says your squat should look like this and with this much load to lead to this. You go, well, I've been doing this for 12 years. I don't see it the same way. I'm working with
it a little different.
Yeah.
I'm working with a couple different populations, a couple different, age groups here.
That's it. That's the same thing. It's like you see somebody who might need something different. And they're like, well, I saw this video where this doctor was saying, you're like, yeah, but you're not 37, you're 18 or whatever. Right. And that's.
Or you're not 18, you're 57.
Exactly. Yeah. More than, yeah. Right. Exactly. And that's the thing is like, especially in our industry, there's like this fad of like science-based stuff. And they're just like, they're tests that are done internally and then pulled internally, and then people put it out as science, and they shun everybody else for going against science. And you're like, that's not real. You just, you know what I mean? They'll put an e-collar on a dog, tell a dog to sit that doesn't know sit with a trainer who's never taught the dog how to do anything, and they'll turn it up. They'll nail the dog will scream, and they'll go, e-collars are bad. Science said these collars are bad. And I'm like, that is not. But again, it doesn't, like, human beings can look at that and go, that is so flawed. Right. I'm sure you guys see it all the time where it's like the science says these things or this one person says this, and you're like, yeah, it's maybe for that one thing, but we have to understand the scope here. And there's huge variability here.
Well, with us too, the scope, but also who is the data being cherry picked that's given to you, who's funding it. It's like there's just so many layers that. Right.
That's it.
The cherry picking is the big thing. Like, let me pick out what backs up my beliefs.
Yeah.
But then you go and you look at the whole study, and it goes in the conclusion, everything you said is bullshit.
Right.
Or this study was funded by the people who put it on. It's like,
this makes sense.
It's so crazy. Like it sucks though, because sometimes people do get roped into that. Like so many, like it's big in our industry where their dogs will come in so drugged up, because the behaviorist or a trainer
just like anxiety medication.
Yeah. When I'm like, well, you're not exercising your dog, you're not training your dog, your dog's relationship with you is awful. Like, let's try these things first. It's the same thing they're doing with humans. Like, even with like fitness now, with all the things that are coming out, it's like they're just looking for a quick, especially America, it's like quick way to just lose weight or look better. And it's like, or you just eat better and work out.
Yeah.
That's also a good way to do it.
Tried and true.
Yeah, you see that like the Ozempic and the GLP ones now, and it's like I really shit on them at first, and I've kind of done this little back and forth where I've seen some people where, and I don't think we know fully the long-term effects yet, right? Like on a GI system in the body, we just don't. But I've seen with some people where some people just want it as a quick fix. I put in no effort. The trouble with that is if you don't do any strength training and you're taking these, you're going to lose fat tissue, you're going to lose muscle tissue as well. Your functionality is going to decrease. But I've seen it where it's been this Kickstarter where now somebody started to lose some weight, the confidence came up, now they're in the gym, now they're exercising, now they've cleaned up their diets. You go, okay, this was kind of like this keystone thing to get you going.
It's either
cool, that's positive.
Like that or somebody that is medically like actually needs it for pre-diabetes or diabetic or things like that, where it's like, okay, like we've tried everything under the sun.
Right.
We're gonna do this, and then all of a sudden, all their numbers are getting better.
Yes.
They're losing
but
weight.
Still,
and
people.
So it's
like
like there's a way to use it. And I would say like it's probably the same in your industry, is like the way to use science with experience to make it the best of both worlds. You know?
Yeah.
And like that's really what it comes down to, is like if it's used by the right people, it works.
Yeah.
If it's used by the people that shouldn't be using it, then you see all the other stuff that's coming out.
Yeah. Yep. And it's just it's disheartening, because it's like people are one thing because they have the ability to actually dig a little bit. Dogs can't.
Dogs don't have.
They just get stuffed with Prozac and they're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm like, no, the dog is 6 months old. Like, this is abuse.
They don't have a Google search bar.
No.
Yeah, that's a great point. And that's just like, is it an owner just being lazy? Like, I don't want to put in the work and I'm just going to drop.
Sometimes, or it's just they were told by their vet because they're a vet and they're like, this is what it is. And it's like, no, like, let me show you.
Okay. What are, as somebody who's a new dog owner, first time or not, like, what are things you're like, let's check all these boxes initially to build confidence in you and your dog, give you a foundation to set you up to like have a happy life? And are there certain things?
Yeah. I always tell people, like, relationship first. That's like the number one thing. If you have a good relationship with somebody, you can build everything, right? But if it's just like a forced thing, it's tough. So the biggest thing that happens in our industry that I see, especially for me being an expert in behavior, is people who, like, the worst case dogs I've ever had are people who give their dog too much freedom and not enough structure. A lot like people, a lot like kids. So, you know, they'll have full-blown conversations with their dog, but they won't train their dog they won't hold their dog accountable. So for an example, let's say you said, hey, dog, sit. And then the dog puts their butt on the ground, and then you paid the dog, and then the dog gets back up. Or you tell a dog to sit. This is a better example. You tell a dog to sit. They don't. You ask them again. They don't. You ask them again. They don't. So right there is a problem, because if the dog knows the behavior, they know how to sit, they're just not willing to do it for you. And then you start searching for food. The food comes out. They pay the dog puts their butt on the ground. They get back up. So the dog's relationship with you is one dimensional. So they only will. It's like telling your kids to clean your room and they're like $20. You're like, no, what? Right. No, like you have to go to, or like you gotta go to school to like pay me. It's like, that's not how this works, right? So there's two things to that. The first initial thing is the idea that the dog won't sit. So that's a problem, for many things, but it's scalable to everything: recall, place, stay, leave it. It's heel. It's fundamental principles, right? It's your foundation. But then bigger than that, your relationship with your dog struggles immensely, because now the dog doesn't respect you, the dog doesn't listen to you, and you need some sort of bribery to get your dog to do something. So a lot of times people will come in and they'll say, hey, my dog's reactive, and they're barking and they're lunging and they look like they want to kill everybody, and they're really not. They're just reactive. And typically that stems from the dog thinking that the owner, or knowing that the dog's owner doesn't know what they're doing. So the dog goes, I love you, but you have no idea what you're doing. Therefore, I need to scare everyone else away from us. Especially if you get like a more protective dog, like a Rottweiler, or a Cane Corso, or German Shepherd. They become, their genetics tell them that they gotta become like with my Borbal. If at any point in time he thought I was a pushover, he would be deadly. Like, he would be dangerous. Like, I couldn't have him around people, because he would be like, I'm supposed to be this most protective breed in the world, and the person that's in charge has no idea what they're doing. Therefore, I will take lead on everything. Right. They're jumping on people, they're bulldozing people down and potentially biting people, etc. So that's like at scale what I see the most often. And so, like, I always tell people from the very beginning, teach the behavior first, sit down, stay, or place. Once they get old enough to understand fundamentally what the behavior is, like they've captured it, they go, I know what this is. Then you can start balancing things out with your leash. Sit, I don't want a correction. Oh. So they go, oh, you're going to hold me accountable.
When you say correction, little leash pull.
Like literally, you can use it depends on the dog. So, but some dogs go, and they're like, oh, my bad. Sorry. Like, they're more sensitive. Some dogs, a little bit of pressure on the leash. Some dogs, you'll have to use like a slip collar or prong collar, something that is more like, if you tried to, like, for an example, if you took my 160-pound Rhino out for a walk and he wanted to go somewhere and he didn't know you, like if you were walking him and he wanted to do something and you said no, and you had just a flat collar or even a harness on the dog, you were either letting go or you're getting dragged. Right. There's no question. But if you have something like a prong collar that's safer to communicate with the dog, that's why they were invented, it's going to be safer for you to communicate. So there's so many, again, it's this huge spectrum. That's the thing in dog training, is there's so many different genetics, there's so many different dogs, there's so many different handlers, and there's this huge thing. So yeah, so it's so that's really like what I see often is people, their dog gets away with a bunch of stuff and then all of a sudden they want to stop it. It's like somebody eating like crap, never working out, coming in here and being like, look at me. And you're like, dude, you've done it to yourself. You literally have done this to yourself. So that's what I typically see. So I always tell people, when you start training with your dog, just make sure you would work with your dog the way that you would work with your kids. If you don't want them to do something, don't be a pushover. Like they go to grab the knife, you go, no, don't. And they go, meh. And you go, huh, okay. Like that's a problem. Like it's not only a problem because they did it, but it's a bigger problem because now your kid or your dog, in this sake, they don't respect you. They don't listen to you. They know that you're not going to hold them accountable. So when you go, oh, dog, come, and there's a car, what do you got for me? You're like, I just want you to come. Like you're about to get hit by a car. Right. And I've seen that. I used to be an animal control officer, and I've seen that over and over again. I pull dogs out of fenders all the time. They go, he always comes back. I'm like, until they don't.
Oh, geez. When did you do that? Before dog walking?
Probably after. So before training, but in between. Yeah.
Jeez. Which is what, all dogs or all different animals?
I was a DCO, so I was a dog control officer. Yeah. So it was just dogs. And yeah, like the amount of dogs, like that's the thing. Is like I'm in the trenches. Like there's people who can type in the internet and be like, this is how you should train dogs according to science. I'm like, you've never handled a dog, okay? You know, like I've been in the trenches, like in many different avenues with dogs, and I've seen what works and what doesn't. So it's like cute that you think that, you know, but it's like I've seen it, right? Like that's the problem is I've had to like return collars to people and be like, oh, unfortunately your dog got hit.
Oh
like,
God, that's heavy.
It's awful. It's awful. It's awful. But again, like that's what has made me such a universal, like balanced trainer. Is I know how violent dogs can get. Like I've seen violence, right? I've seen like really bad stuff. And for people to be like, you should never correct the dog because there are sweet little angel baby fluff balls. I'm like, your dog would literally take you outside and kill you right now, and you have no idea what you're doing.
You've been bit before?
Yes, but very, very, very rarely. I've gotten bitten, I think, one time, and it was my fault. The dog, we were working with a dog. I was working with a shadow student. This is years ago. And she did something with the leash and the collar, and it was a reactive dog, and we had a demo dog out, just chilling. Like a neutral dog. She did something with the leash and collar, and the dog got off, and it was a dog that wanted to hurt other dogs. So I jumped on the dog, and he just took his canine and just went thunk and just sunk it into my somewhere. And that's about the only time, because I'm super cautious, dude. Like I'm super cautious. Like some of the old timers are big. If you haven't been bitten by 10 dogs, you're not really working dogs. I'm like, or you're just smart and strategic.
Right.
So I primarily work with behavioral cases, and it's like the only time I could remember actually getting bit, and it was I had to, because I didn't want the other dog to get hurt for no reason, because he trusts me. He's like sitting there like, oh, okay. And then this, aggressive dog comes to get him. So I jumped on him, and he just like, it was like crazy too, because I just saw him go. He didn't bite me. He just went and just sunk his canine directly, and like they're so strong. It was like butter. He just went thunk, and I was like watching it happen. Dude, it was crazy.
Dude. Where you at with like getting dogs from breeders versus rescuing dogs?
Yep. So it's a good question. I think most people...
Didn't New York just isn't there some new law, or am I wrong?
I think there's a federal law now that you can't import dogs until 6 months.
Okay.
Which is not ideal for importing like a puppy from another place, like another country, because you need your puppy before that, because then they're like, like really grown.
Right.
I think that's a federal law now that they did. The CDC may have done that. Okay. I'm not 100% sure.
But that's just like, hey, maybe it's going to be harder to train a 6-month-old versus a 2-month-old.
Well, and there's also, yeah. And if you're doing police work or whatever, like you're done. Like, you need that dog at 8 weeks, development.
Because there's like a critical window probably for them to really learn.
At 6 months, they're like, like they're like a toddler. Like that's the sponge. So I always tell people, like, if you're just looking for a dog, go to the shelter. I got shit when I got a Boerboel because people are like, Tom, it's like, and I'm like, listen, when you need a job, like a dog for a specific job, like a very specific thing, like I know that I go and I look at I got him from Texas. I look at dad, I look at mom, I'm touring the facility, I'm looking at the dogs. Like, it's actually really cool what you can do with dog genetics. Like, you can see what you're going to get. It's really, really fascinating, honestly. And it's actually like the purest way of, like, especially for breeds, like working with a good breeder is huge, which doesn't happen often. But for me, I just tell people, like, if you're looking for a dog, go to a shelter. Because if you don't need a dog to do certain things, Like, go to a shelter. You're going to find a great dog. I've had shelter dogs my whole life, but there's like my Dutch Shepherd, for an example. Like, I got her very specifically as my demonstration dog to be like super, super, super on point. And I knew for a fact that if I bought her, that's what it would be, because I saw the lines of the dog, and I was like, nothing's guaranteed, but you have a highly likelihood of understanding what this dog is going to do, especially if you have a family. So again, like the breeder I went to, like he just posted a video today of his kids like rolling around with the dogs and stuff like that. So there are definitely, I'm a realist, right? There's definitely a time and a place to spend money on a purebred dog, because you are getting what you're paying for. Like, you're getting for good genetics, which means you're getting good bone structure, you're getting good hearts, you're getting good livers, you're getting good temperaments for the most part, right? So like, how many times have you had to like, the stories of like putting down a dog at 6 years old because they had hip dysplasia, or putting down a dog at 7 because they had cancer? Like, you're typically not going to get that. When the dog has cancer in your bloodlines, when you're breeding dogs, it never gets bred again. Like, that's the point of now on the contrary of that, to give contrast, to be fair, that doesn't mean if you get a purebred dog that's going to happen. You have to go to a good breeder. Like the $500 German Shepherd puppy that you get in the Walmart parking lot is probably not going to do well for you, right? I have a staff right now. She got 2 cheap dogs, and both of them have issues, severe issues that cost her thousands of dollars, and heartache, because now the dog's going to die really early. So I've also had shelter dogs that have lived 14, 15 years old, and they're the best. I'm just saying, I'm trying to give context and some diversity on the devil edge right there on like both of those things. Devil's advocate. So
yeah. Did you go to the mothership when you were in Texas? I saw your shirt.
Hell yeah.
Was it cool?
Awesome.
It looks cool as shit online.
Yeah, big fan of Joe. Obviously, like having my own podcast, he's the GOAT. But yeah, I loved it. It was really, really cool. Texas is just cool. It's a cool vibe.
It's in Austin, right?
Yeah.
Jay, you've been to Austin.
Yeah.
You liked?
Yeah, Austin's cool.
Yeah, it's very really cool. Like, good food, good vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Decent weather. It's like any other big city, though. You're gonna get some homeless people running naked down the road.
Like, Jordy sees that in Troy. It says,
"Oh yeah, they're around." Yeah. That's okay.
You get that in every city.
Yeah, it's just it's cool to see like what people do too. Like, I mean, Joe's like an anomaly, but it's like building that thing up from the ground is like cool. It's cool to like just see it. So yeah, we went to the mothership. Had tons of barbecue. I just like barbecue hopped around. Yeah, it was fun.
Who'd you see there? Anybody big?
No, not too big. It was a girl. She's been on the Rogan podcast a bunch of times. I can't remember her name, but she was funny. She's just raunchy as hell, but like that's the part of like comedy, right? It's like you're like, whoa. Yeah. But yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was like Jesse Polimo or something like that. I can't remember her name. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's sick, man. Yeah, good comedy's awesome. It's like, I guess, you speak in front of people. We in here are commanding groups all day. And when you watch a good stand-up on the stage, being composed, leading an audience, it's like, I'm like, that is one of the most impressive things, man.
Yeah, and also, trying to be funny. Because it's like, when you're a comedian, you get direct response. Like, you say a joke and it bombs. Like, you know
exactly.
Immediately, like, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Like, let me go this route. Let me diverge.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about just speaking in front of people in general is terrifying.
Yeah, how much have you had to fine tune your craft in terms of public speaking and doing these seminars, or have you always been comfortable with like, here I am in front of people?
Dude, I'm super comfortable in front of the camera because it'd be like if I asked you right now, like if we had a camera crew right now and I was like, can you just show me how to like do this stuff? You would be like, yeah.
I'd rock it.
I blindfolded. For me, that's what it's like working in front of the camera, working with dogs. Like when I do the Today Show or GMA or Fox News or whatever, like they're literally like, you're the expert. Tell us about dogs. I'm like, bet. It's easy. Like so easy, right? But like, there is the imposter syndrome. Like when I first did my big like sold out room in England, it was scary because my ticket prices are also very expensive. So they're $400. They start at $400 and then they go up to like $1,800.
So and you feel what? Pressure to deliver?
A lot of pressure. I'm in a different country. I'm tired. My sleep is all messed up. Different time zone. And so before I go out, because I usually have like a presentation, like somebody will introduce me, or like I flew my dad out to present me one time. It was really cool. But so that kind of like, I don't want people to ever be like, that wasn't worth the money. So that kind of freaks me out more than anything. But the actual work, once I get going, you know, and I'm checking, I'm reading the room. But there's been so many times where I've been like, that person hates me, that person hates me, and then after they're like coming up and they're like, dude, sign my shirt. That was the best thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, I get in my own head about it. But I'm always super comfortable about doing my thing. I never get worried about the dogs. Like when I do all these logistics to go to these different countries to do these big events, the absolute very, very last thing, if at all, I ever think about the dogs. That's like not on the list of things. It's, you know, lighting and making sure that there's coffee and water, like me getting, but again, like I'm so lucky to have that gift. Like my staff still take notes of every session they do and blah, blah, blah. Like you can drop me anywhere in the world and I would put on with the dog, you know? And that's just a gift that I was born with, though. Like that's higher power than me, and I know that.
Yeah, and to realize it and capitalize on it, yeah, man, it's awesome. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, man.
Dude, this was great. No, I'm happy we could connect. When somebody told me right down the road, I was like, holy shit! And then I didn't even understand the just kind of how you've grown your career and your presence online. I was like, holy shit, this guy's really doing it, and here he is in. You know, from upstate New York and upstate New York. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I'm looking at your shirt. So, Aaron, I worked with a couple of those guys there, and Aaron.
Judge, we talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, I DM'd Aaron Judge, and I DM'd him like 3 years ago. Just like shoot my shot.
You got to shoot your shot.
Shoot.
That's
man.
A good lesson for everybody.
I shot my shot, and like, you know how there's a story about Zach Bryan shooting a shot with the Lumineers and then did a song with the Lumineers. If you don't know that, that's what happened. I DM'd Aaron Judge because back in the day we used to do these, and I'm sure you guys know about this. You take like the bus down, the Yankee Trail bus down to the Yankee Stadium. You sat way up in the nosebleeds,
yep.
Sweating hot. You know, like it was awful. Like but it's all I could afford. My mom, you know, single mom and stuff, and so
I definitely remember doing that.
Yeah, it was fun, you know, at the time, but you know, it was hot. So anyway, I was like, man, it would be such a career goal to like work with a Yankee, and not just any Yankee, the Yankee, like captain, right? So I shot him a DM on Instagram, and you know, whatever. And then I was like, whatever. And then a couple years went by, and then my assistant, she's like, hey, Aaron Judge's team just reached out and wanted you to train his dog. And I was like, they're like, do you want me to handle it? Or I'm like, no, give it to me. I got it. I'll do this. I got this. But it was just crazy because I was looking back and like, just if anybody's out there listening, shit, it's like, you know, like anything is I've done some really cool shit just because I've put myself out there, but also like putting my money where my mouth is. But I was just looking at your shirt and like how you were saying about like me just being down the road and being able to do some cool shit. And like, that was pretty cool. I, you know, like, shot my shot with him, and then like a couple years later, obviously he didn't read that, and you know I just texted him and his wife the other day. They just had a baby and you know developed a relationship with him. But it's pretty cool to like come from, you know, and I'm sure your listeners a lot are from this area, and I just, you know, I get to do some cool stuff, man. And it's like I worked really hard, shot my shot, and you never know what's gonna happen. You just send it out there, and it happens. And I think it's a universal thing. Like he didn't read it, but the fact that I put it out to the universe, I said, I want to work with you. And then a couple years later they got a dog, and then they'd been at my house for like 3 summers in a row. Right. And like, I remember like walking, for an example, like I was walking down the road and this guy walked by my neighborhood with a Judge shirt on. I had 2 of his dogs, like his dogs with me. And I was like, he's like, oh, they're so cute. And I let him go up, and I told him, and he was like freaking out. But it's pretty cool. So I would just tell people, like, if you're listening and you're kind of thinking about doing your shit, or you're thinking like maybe you're not getting to a point where you could. I can guarantee you will fail if you give up. But just keep going, because there's been so many times in my career, even, you know, recently, even this year, where I'm like, I gotta stop. Like I'm not, you know. So I would just say like, just keep doing what you're doing and keep on keeping on.
Yeah. You got to stop like self-doubt or just like fatigue and burnout.
Just like, yeah, it's like, it's tough. Like you put yourself out there, and sometimes when you get these opportunities, it's like once you get these bigger opportunities, it's this high that people don't talk about. You know, like now you're like, oh, I need this. Now I need another big client, or I need another video that hits 1 million views, or like, so it's kind of like this. Nobody teaches you that shit. Like you don't like get. Do you want me to tell you this? Do we have time to tell you this story?
Go, let it rip, baby.
All right, listen to this. So And I tell this story all the time, especially to like high schoolers, because
you know it gets real when he grabs the mic.
He says,
he
says,
buckle up, everybody.
He goes, Jordan, I don't care if your cat's 14, listen up.
No, this is a crazy story. So just about like perspective. There's this time in my life, and I talk at my South Glens Falls High School, and even like other Shenandoah and stuff. Like I talk to kids, and I just talk about perspective, and I talk about gratuity, and I talk about like controlling your ego and controlling like your mind. And so, the People magazine had reached out to my publicist, and they wanted to do a story on me, and I thought it was going to be online. And my publicist was like, "Hey, I got a surprise for you. It's not just online." So I thought it was. So I'm like, again, South Glens Falls, little town, no middle of nowhere, bullshit, right? Like people don't. Jimmer Fredette was the only person that I knew got out, right? Mm-hmm. And by getting out, I mean breaking through the norm of your career, of being like the expert in the world, right? And so anyway, so I was like, oh, that's cool. So I was in New York working with Aaron, and I was working with Anthony Rizzo, and I was going between their penthouses in New York, and my publicist was like, hey, the People magazine dropped, you should go check it out. I'm like, oh, sick, right? And I have my videographer with me, and we're going to these places, and I couldn't find the People magazine. Like I was going to all these like little stores. If you live in New York City, you know, like all those bodegas that have all like in the newspaper stores, and I couldn't find it. I was so pissed. So I remember. So think of this. I'm in New York City, working with Aaron and Anthony Rizzo, which arguably are like the heavy hitters on the New York Yankees. Dream come true of mine. And now I'm upset because I couldn't find my People magazine insert, right? And I go to the Chobani. I'll never forget this. I stay in Soho when I go to New York City. And I go to the Chobani down there, and I'm checking out, and the girl's like, she's like, oh my God, I like watch all your videos. And I was so mad about the People magazine thing. I'm like, oh, thanks. Can I get like, I was such a dick. And I'll never forget that, because in perspective, if you would have like told me now, or even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago, that was going to be on the table, I would be like, holy shit, I'm working with a Yankee, but I'm working with... So I tell this story to people all the time to just... People don't realize, like, once you get on this and that train starts to pump, and you feel like you're like, then it's really... It's like... It's almost like an addiction of like you almost put yourself on this pedestal of like, now I have to keep going more because now everyone's counting on me or looking at me or whatever. You feel it's your ego, and you got to have you have to have a really healthy relationship with your ego as people. Like same thing for you. People are going to come in and say, man, you changed my life. You're the best ever. I've went to all these other people and you're the best. You got to check that at the door and be like, I'm just doing my job. Right. Mm-hmm. But I just remember that because it really put things into perspective for me. And that was like game changing in my career, because again, like I have to practice gratuity because as a hardworking young person, if you will, that's gone down the non-traditional route, right? Living in my buddy's backyard for a while, coming from a single mom home, not having a college degree and doing what I'm doing is hard, right? But being able to put things into perspective, just because things get really good, then you look forward to the next good thing over and over. Like I get totally spoiled sometimes. And I just always tell people, like, you have to practice gratuity, and also know that once you start achieving your goals and your dreams, you also have to be mindful about how to conceptualize and like really zoom out and go, okay, this is amazing. This is great. I'm so grateful for this. I'm so lucky for this. And I am like that. It's just, I remember I was like, what a dick I was. Mm-hmm. Like somebody recognized me in New York City as I was working with two of the biggest guys on the Yankees looking for my People magazine insert. And I was a dick because I couldn't find it. And so that's not me. I mean, it's just not like it's really not. And I had to like check myself. I'm like, what the hell was that about? Right. And I even went back and she wasn't there and I felt bad. But anyway, so it's just like, I think to your point, what we were talking about is, just in general, like keeping things into perspective is so big, no matter like where you're at. And everybody goes through seasons. Like I have to remind myself sometimes, like comparing yourself to other, like I get
that's a dangerous path to go down in terms of anybody. I think about, And here when we first opened the business, it's like, where do I stack up against other gyms? How do I stack up against other trainers? How's it served? In terms of, we had a hard time having our daughter. We did a bunch of IVF cycles. But I remember my wife, the biggest thing was her on social media being like, I'm seeing all these other moms post with their kids, and just, it's hard as humans. There's something innate where social media feeds into that, but yeah, we can't help but want to compare ourselves to other people. Yeah,
it's tough. I tell that story as much as I can, not to, because I was a dick in that story. So it's like, not to impress anybody. It's just, it's sometimes when you just kind of feel like this train's going to stop and you have to keep going. And so and again, nobody teaches you this. Like, my dad's 70 something years old. Like, he didn't grow up with any of the social media stuff. Like, I can't ask him like, hey, what do I do here? He's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Dad, remember when you got those bad comments on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, right. And he's like, you mean comic books? No, comments on YouTube. It's like, so anyway, yeah, it's crazy. So I just like tell people, like, it's a tough world out there, and you have to give yourself more grace, and you have to, like, really zoom out a little bit and go, wow, that, actually I'm healthy. People love me, and I get to do, in my case and in your case, it sounds like you get to do what you love, and that's a blessing. And on any, on any spectrum, no matter what level you're at, and just know that there's seasons to life. And just because you feel like it's not your season, it will be. And I have a hard time with that too, as I see other people, not just in my industry, just in general. And I'm like, man, why don't I get that? I'm like, dude, shut up. Shut up.
Do you take any inspiration or motivation people outside of your industry? Like, I'm
mostly.
What are examples?
Mostly.
Any?
Yeah, like my clients, like getting to see, like living with Logan Paul for a little bit, watching Patrick Mahomes move, watching some of these other clients, Dave Portnoy, like being able to like be in there, and even the governor, like Governor Cuomo at the time when he was in office, like it's different when you're working with somebody's dog. I'm not like cutting their yard or cutting their hair or like, getting them into shape, although that's a great relationship. Like, I have to come in deep into their life and really see what they're doing.
Right.
And I'm like, yo, like, and it's a beautiful thing. So I find a lot of inspiration from some of my clients because I get rooted in their life, which is incredible, like opportunities that people would have to, pay a lot of money to do. And I get it organically, and it's a gracious thing that I get. It's part of my job too. And so I learn a lot from them, and they've all just, like, all my clients have been unbelievable, and just being able to learn from them. But there's like people like Kai Lenny, who's a professional surfer out in Hawaii, watching him like break. I like people who break barriers, right? And break the molds, and they shake up their industry. Like Kai Lenny is one of those people. And there's other like people in the climbing industry. Like I was telling you guys, I think before we started, like the alpinist people who can like free solo up things that people can't even do with ropes is like so inspiring. I'm like, I'm not doing shit. I'm like, I need to go out there and do something with my life. So I find a lot of inspiration in people who are breaking the industry standards, because, dog training outside of like Cesar Millan is like a hobby that you do on the weekends. Right. People ask me like, so what do you do? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. So anyway, I find a lot of inspiration from other people from all over walks of life. Even just talking to strangers in New York City or something, like just bullshitting with them about life is so cool to like hear other people's perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, Tom, I appreciate you, Ben. This was great.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
This was awesome.
Yeah, man. No, thanks for doing this, and we'll catch everybody next time.
Cool.
Thank you.